Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Mark's Side of the Ring. I am back as your host, Miguel Minetti, and I am not Nick Fiorentino, and we do not have Nick Fiorentino this week, but we have our other official co-host here, Fred DeCourt. Fred, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be back and now to be officially a part of the Mark's Side of the Ring podcast. I'm very excited.
Yes, and we are so excited to have you, Fred. And for those of you at home that don't know yet, Fred will officially be joining us as our third man starting next week when we do our Survivor Series predictions. Unfortunately, we were supposed to start the three-man group this week, but Nick had a scheduling conflict, so Fred is filling in as the Nick Fiorentino of the week, a lot more handsome than Nick Fiorentino, so I'm not here to complain.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. So, we have an exciting episode today, a lot to discuss. Fred, I'm ready to jump right into it. Are you ready, my friend?
Let's go.
All right. So obviously I want to talk about the breaking news that happened last night. And I know we just talked about this quickly off air before we jumped on here, but What a shock that WWE has come to terms with Zelina Vega. And at first, our immediate reactions were the fact that it had to be something to do with those third-party apps. And I know Zelina has been big on Twitch and maybe some other outside streaming vendors too. For those of you that don't know, just to recap, WWE did come out with a mandate about a month or so ago saying that all wrestlers need to cease and desist their third-party apps, so Twitch or whatever other channels are out there that were money-making channels, because they're under contract to WWE. So the more we dug into it, it looks like Zelina Vega decided not to obey WWE's command of Twitch or ceasing and desisting on third-party apps and continue to do her live stream on Twitch, in which WWE came to terms almost immediately with Zelina Vega. So I want to ask you right off the gate here, Fred, what were your immediate thoughts when you saw that Zelina Vega was terminated?
Well, yeah, the first thing I saw when I saw it on Twitter is Zelina Vega released, I was like, oh my God, I was shocked. Like, I wasn't expecting that because she's been so great, especially through the pandemic, and all that. But then when you start thinking about it with all the stuff with Twitch and the third-party ban, then I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little sense. I didn't know if maybe it was a sense of like she asked to be released because she didn't like the mandate, or it was because she didn't give up her Twitch yet. And I think it was like at some point in this month or the end of October, beginning of November, where it really officially started that they had to be off because they gave them like a little grace period. And she also started an OnlyFans, nothing, crazy, but like cosplay photos and stuff like that. So I think that may have played into it as well. But yeah, I was shocked because she's such a great talent. I would have liked to seen something work out, but unfortunately it didn't. And the bigger story in this too, I think, is what will happen with her husband, Aleister Black.
Yeah, I saw on social media that I think it was a couple of days ago, before obviously the news came that she was released from her contract, that Aleister Black had asked to go back down to NXT and was denied to go back down to NXT.
Yeah, I did see that. And honestly, I don't understand why they would have done that. I mean, let's be honest, they haven't done much with him since he's come to the main roster. They had rebooted him a little bit as a heel on Raw with Kevin Owens, and then he got drafted over to SmackDown, but he hasn't really done much.
Yeah.
As we've seen with Finn Balor, it really can, rejuvenate a career and bring him back to a higher level. And we're seeing with Ember Moon as well. And then, maybe then he can go back to the main roster, say next year or something. But I don't know why they wouldn't let him go to NXT. I understand the main roster needs talent, but.
Well, I'm thinking this. I'm thinking maybe now, with more and more news coming out about the whole Zelina Vega being released from her contract, maybe Black is seeing the writing on the wall. So he's trying to go back down to NXT where he knows he can maybe be a little bit more protected. And I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know if you know about this. Does Triple H have any say as far as whose contract is, kept in place versus who's terminated in NXT, or does Vince have full autonomy even over NXT?
I think when it comes to that stuff, Vince has full control. Even when it comes to guys coming and going to NXT, Triple H could have asked himself to Vince, can we get Aleister down here? And if Vince says no, Vince says no. I mean, NXT itself is Triple H's baby, and he pretty much, runs that show. But if it involves a main roster talent and things like that, Triple H doesn't fully get it his way. So Yeah, Triple H could have even lobbied to get Alistair, but if Vince says no, and then the answer is no, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame because, like you said, when Aleister Black was on NXT, it was so exciting. Comes up to the main roster. I think he started on Raw first. I think where it started to go wrong is the first thing I noticed that got stale about him is they changed his theme song. I mean, it's such an awesome theme song. And I know you and I have talked about this, but my God, they've made so many changes to Superstar's theme songs, and I'd say his change was probably the worst out of all the songs so far.
Yeah, I haven't heard one. I understand that there's a lot going on with the rights to the music with the former group CFOs, with the publishing rights. So there's a big reason that they have to change them. But I don't know one redone song that actually sounds any better than what was previously used. None of them. The Otis had a new one I noticed on SmackDown last night. His was it was okay. It wasn't bad.
It was the most non-generic out of all the songs.
Yeah, the rest of them sound like the most generic theme songs. I mean, CFOs were so good. All the themes that they had done since about 2016, 2015, somewhere in that range, have just been great.
Right.
So, yeah, these current guys. Def Rebel is the name of the group that they're under. It's just I don't know. They need to go back to the drawing board because some of these songs are just not good.
I want to get back to the whole Twitch/third-party battle versus WWE here, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Immediately, what are your thoughts on the fact that WWE does have this ban out? Do you think that it's right, or do you think that Superstar should be able to create a second stream of income?
Yeah, I mean, normally I'm, always on the WWE side of things, like, business is business, like, get over it. But I will say in this aspect, I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. I think the problem that started with it was with Lana. I don't know if it was her on Rusev's Twitch or it was something she did. She was promoting something, and WWE didn't like that. She was promoting something on this, streaming thing.
Yeah,
that was the issue. So I think maybe that was part of it. And as we know, WWE likes to have control of its superstars, right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, you can get into the whole independent contractor thing. But, yeah, I mean, I think if they put rules in place, like you can have your Twitch channel, but, you can't mention these things. You can't talk about these things, say, like, you can just, like, politics, the things you wouldn't like, things like that, or you can't promote other companies, products. If they put rules in place, but still let them keep the Twitch or the cameos, I don't see what they're doing, anything wrong. I think it is only fair, but I get that WWE has to protect their intellectual property. Now there is talk that WWE is going to start their own Twitch channel and have their own cameo type of setup, and they do have the virtual meet and greets that they've been doing lately. So I think that plays into it as well, because now fans won't pay for the virtual meet and greet when they can do a cameo, pay for a cameo. Maybe the cameo is a better price, and maybe you get a better, product with the cameo. You can get it more personalized, to say whatever you want kind of thing. So then now that affects WWE's business, because now fans won't go out and pay for the virtual meet and greets. So I do get it, but I think there's ways that they can maybe work it a little bit better.
So I think the problem is, obviously these weren't put into their contracts, because this whole phenomena of these third-party apps really started when the pandemic started, right?
Right.
Unless somebody was just hired or put into a new contract recently, I'm sure there's no verbiage when they signed something initially that's saying you have, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but you have no rights to things like Twitch, Cameo, TikTok, that type of stuff without our consent on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's safe to say that the pandemic has obviously increase the appetite for these third-party apps, these Twitches, these Cameos, because beforehand, right, people were doing live meet and greets, right? They were meeting.
Right.
We were, you and I were going to meet and greets all the time. We were meeting wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
People weren't really having as much time to go ahead and watch Adam Cole play video games or AJ Styles play video games on Twitch, right? And
right.
truth be told, I don't understand that phenomenon. I actually watched it once and I signed up for it. And I was like, it's not for me, but there's a massive audience for it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I don't necessarily get it. I'm not a gaming person, so I don't get that. But, you know, like you said, there's an audience for it. And if it puts a little extra cheese in the wrestler's pocket, I mean, I am for the wrestlers as well. You know what I mean? So, but
what I'm afraid of is this, right? Is this now going to open the door for more wrestlers to start speaking up and WWE kind of playing, you know, a game of chicken with them to say it's our way or you're out of here. And, you know, with AEW growing, right, and being an actual alternative option for professional wrestlers, do they now have that choice to say, you know what, I'm going to go to AEW. I'm going to go to AEW where they don't care if I'm on Twitch or Cameo. They go ahead and they pay for my belongings and my hotel and my travel. I want to get your thoughts. I'm assuming you listened to the podcast with Jericho and Andrew Yang, right?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you heard Jericho flat out admit the fact that WWE does not pay for travel, which we've always heard rumors about, but I don't think anyone's ever verified it before.
Right.
But Jericho went live on a podcast to say that in the WWE, they give you your plane tickets, but you're responsible for the hotel, you're responsible for your rental, you're responsible to getting from point A to point B, whereas apparently in AEW, they treat you more like you're an NFL or NBA superstar, where they cover your entire travel. And honestly, I can't believe that WWE doesn't do that still to this day. I mean, a conglomerate like they are.
I mean, now here is the thing with that. So this is like when WWE was on the road, right? With house shows and things of that nature.
Of course.
Yeah, they, you know, but now the wrestlers, they're not staying in hotels because they're just going to Orlando the one day a week for TV and then they go home, right? So with the AEW, it's a little different because they never had a touring schedule. They only had TV even before the pandemic. They were in different cities every week, but they weren't on the road doing 4 or 5 shows in the week. So there really was no travel then, the plane ticket to whatever city that they were in and you know, and then going back home. They weren't really, maybe they would stay overnight one night, the night of the show, depending on what the travel schedule was, where, you know, where the show was, how the flights were, whatever. But there was no getting a car rental going from town to town through the course of the weekend. You know what I'm saying? And so their travel schedule has always been different. But yeah, WWE, they've never paid for hotel and, you know, car rental. That's always been the wrestlers' own, you know, responsibility to not only pay, but also to book it. You know, they would find their own hotels. They would get their own rental cars. And I do know that like European tours, you know, they would all be on one bus and they would go from show to show on this bus. Or if they had to fly, you know, depending on how far the countries were on the course of the European tour, you know, and that was all paid for obviously by WWE. But yeah, it's just, I think, you know, it was just the way it always was. Not even WWE, just back in the day and you know, the old wrestling days, you know, you went from town to town in the territory and they weren't even flying back then. They were all, you know, they would be in one area and then they would drive, you know, to this town and that town, you know, and it's just the way that the world was. And then, you know, the wrestling world kind of like is a little outdated in the sense of like different things because even though it's a big entertainment conglomerate, there's still a part of it that's still wrestling.
The family business.
Exactly. So certain things have never, such as the independent contract stuff, like it's just that's old school stuff that never evolved with the rest of the.
Do you know if AEW pays their wrestlers as employees with health insurance or no?
I don't believe they have health insurance. No, I don't think they do. Again, their sense is like WWE, where they pay for, like, you know, if you need surgery and, you know, you get an injury, everything's on their dime, and they have doctors just like WWE has doctors, stuff like that. But no, they're not employees. They are independent contractors. Again, they will pay for things, but so will WWE.
Right.
So I think, and Cody actually said he even said unionization. I can't even say the word right. Unionization, whatever, is not the answer that'll kill the wrestling business, which has always been
right.
the fight, because it will. He said, but I do believe that there's things that we can do to make the wrestlers' quality of life better and to give them better, options and
Well,
things.
I think the travel is the first step, right?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you heard this. Speaking of the travel, as we know, AEW doesn't have house shows pre-pandemic, right? They're TV only. So I had heard yesterday, actually, that a WWE superstar was told that even once they're allowed to go back to regular touring, full schedule shows, that there will be no more regular road schedule. So basically meaning, and this has been rumored that they may not bring house shows back because that is a very antiquated thing. Back in the day, the way the business worked is you used your TV to get people to come to the live event.
Right.
Right now, the TV is the bigger thing. The live event is, and it kind of never, and that's why live event attendance hasn't been great. I mean, there's certain markets that there are. So I could see them having maybe one show a weekend, right? Big markets, have a house show in the Garden, have a house show in Chicago, LA, somewhere in Texas, Florida. Like big, they're not going to go to Biloxi, Mississippi for a live event in front of 2,500 fans anymore. So I think this pandemic has made them alter their business model. Where they're more of a television product than they are a live touring product. They will still do TV and maybe an occasional house show, but you won't be on the road 4 or 5 days a year, which is paramount for WWE because that's one of the lures of AEW. The main lure of AEW is the travel.
Right.
So if now WWE superstars, once the pandemic is over, won't have to go on the road 5 days a week, that's going to be a game changer for them. So basically, yeah, it seems, at least according to what this anonymous W superstar was told, the house show business is pretty much going to be done.
I think if WWE wants to stay competitive, right, with AEW, and I'm sure they're going to evolve, I think the two big areas where they can improve is on travel, right? Yep. Like covering costs for all travel. And obviously, if they lower the amount of shows they do, then obviously that means costs come down because they're not staying in hotels as much because they're not traveling as much. So that's right. Area one. And then area two, if AEW is allowing superstars to have their own Twitches and cameos and third-party apps and not getting involved in it, I mean, if they're making a second source of income, think about it, right? I mean, I read there's people, not necessarily wrestlers, but maybe some celebrities that are making like $50,000 a month on Twitch to be playing video games. I'm like, what the F am I doing wrong?
I know.
50 G's a month to have somebody watch me play Donkey Kong or Mario.
Right.
Like it's
crazy,
insane.
I mean, if I was a wrestler and I was making that money on that, I'd be pissed. I would be pissed. Like Big E all the time on the New Day podcast, he would plug his cameo. And him plugging his cameo was great. He even had it on his trunks. Follow your boy.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that. Especially now, they're not getting paid for house shows and stuff like that. I don't, again, I don't know how that's being balanced out. The
business side always made me very curious, and I think.
Oh, me too. I've always been more intrigued on the inside of the business than what I actually was watching on TV. I love the show, but I'm always more intrigued about what's going on behind the scenes. That's what really lures me in. But yeah, so I am curious to see what happens, what comes of this Twitch thing. Like if WWE does start their own, how the wrestlers will be compensated for that. When, God willing, this damn pandemic subsides a little bit and we can go back to regular shows, if house shows definitely don't return. Or very limited, which I also think if they do that too, that'll make it more special, right?
Right.
If they're only at the Garden like they are now a few times a year, but they're only at the Garden a few times a year. They're only at Chicago a few. I would be more prone to go to a house show.
Sure.
Now it's a big deal. You're only doing a few house shows a year. Oh, this will be cool. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens with the Twitch. But I mean, if I was a wrestler, I would be a little disgruntled.
And I'll make this last point on it. We'll move on to our other topics here. But I heard that AJ Styles flew to Stanford to have a meeting with Vince about this.
And I did. And he's a big Twitch guy.
And he's a huge Twitch guy, right? And he's one of the guys by making top dollar on Twitch as a second income here. And from what I read, Vince was basically like, take a hike. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say about Twitch. And, you know, when you have someone like AJ Styles, that's a huge focal point of the main roster on Monday Night Raw. I mean, I don't want to run the risk of this guy leaving to go to AEW or calling quits.
No, I mean, I wouldn't either. And I would think that would be crazy to do. But then I think about the other side. I'm like, well, there's a reason he's Vince McMahon and I'm not. But at that same token, are we at a point in the world where that's not, you know, going to mean much anymore? Like, yeah, you know, you've done your business like this for years, but all good things come to an end. You know, he's had this control over the boys for years. You know, I think it's a generational thing. I think it's just the pandemic has changed the world and the way people look at things.
Yeah.
And AEW being a viable second option. You know, years ago after WCW, it was like, okay, you can go to Impact. Oh, well, congratulations. You know, but now going to AEW is not, I mean, sure, they're not WWE. They never will be. But going to AEW is not a bad thing. They are a big second company that is still making money and have the money behind it. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely see more guys that, you know, 5 years ago, they wouldn't have left. They would have kept their mouth shut and done what they had to do. And, you know, Vince has had an old saying that you have to learn how to eat shit and enjoy the taste of it. That's what Vince saying. So now wrestlers may not have to enjoy to eat the taste of shit. So
I'm curious to see when, you know, the unfortunate day does come where either Vince steps down or he passes away. And, you know, there's obviously been debates on whether Hunter will fully take over or if it'll be a combination between Stephanie, Shane, and Hunter. I truly wonder, more so than just what we see on television, but more so behind the scenes, how will professional wrestling change, right? How will WWE change? Will they start giving more people the option to do those third-party apps? Are they going to start paying for travel expenses, right? Are they going to start taking care of the boys a little bit more than they do so? And because of that, will that open the door for more people to want to come in?
For sure. And I think Triple H will definitely be, I mean, it'll be him and Stephanie. Maybe Shane will have some role, you know, maybe more so now than he would have years ago, but it still will mainly be Triple H and Stephanie. And I definitely think so. And the main reason being Triple H is, and always will be
one of the boys.
Regardless of how office he is, he's been there. He knows what it's like to be a wrestler on the road. And I think that's also what makes Cody special is same thing. He's a wrestler first and foremost before he's a promoter, booker. I mean, even though Tony Khan is the head, you know, Cody, you know, makes a lot of decisions. And the same thing with Triple H. He understands what it's like for the wrestler. Right. So sympathetic with the wrestler. Whereas, Vince gets this image, but wrestlers have gone off the record saying that Vince has this image of him, but, you know, he's like a father figure and he does have a heart. And so Vince is not as much of an animal as it's made out to be, but he is a businessman and rightfully so. But I do think that Triple H will have a little more compassion for the wrestlers and their well-being because he's been there and he knows what it's like.
Yeah, I agree.
He's a wrestler first, then a promoter, you know?
I was just about to say the exact same thing, that Triple H is going to take care of the boys first.
Well, I knew you would agree with me with anything positive I had to say about Triple H. So
you won't get an argument from me there. It'll be happier days for sure. But of course, I do want to now move on to obviously storyline implications of professional wrestling. And, you know, I want to talk about what happened on Friday Night SmackDown. We saw Drew McIntyre show up on SmackDown to confront Roman Reigns. And they had in my opinion, an awesome interaction where Drew told him, hey, I got a championship match against Randy Orton on Monday. And when I beat his ass, I'm coming for you next Sunday at Survivor Series. To me, this is the money match. And I think you agree with me as well, too. As much as I do want to see Roman versus Orton, there is a lot more money in Drew McIntyre, WWE champion, versus Roman Reigns, Universal champion. And part of it's the fact that, of course, you have good versus bad. I mean, when you have a face versus heel in any match and you have two guys to the magnitude that they are, I mean, there's always serious potential there. So I want to ask you, it's a two-part question here. Is this the money match? Do you agree with me? And number two, if so, do you think they're kind of shooting their load a little early here? Should they be waiting for something like WrestleMania for this showdown between the two?
So I think this is the money match for sure. Again, I think a big part of that is the fact that it's good guy versus bad guy. Heel versus heel is always difficult. Babyface versus babyface is difficult, but it's a little more doable.
Right.
It's easier to have you cheering for two people split it down the line than two people you don't like and not cheering for anybody, right? So, but the best is obviously good versus bad. So, and they do have a history with their WrestleMania match when Roman beat Drew at WrestleMania a couple years ago. And I think that this basically gave to the implication that, you know, why would they do this if Drew wasn't going to win the title back and do this match? And we've seen at Survivor Series last minute changes. 2017, it was supposed to be Jinder versus Brock, right? Champion versus champion. And then AJ Styles won it, and it ended up being AJ versus Brock in Survivor Series, right? And then the next year was supposed to be AJ versus Brock again because they were both the respective champs. And then it changed last minute. Daniel Bryan won the title from AJ, and it became Daniel Bryan versus Brock. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that we've had the buildup being it's going to be Randy versus Roman, and then all of a sudden Drew wins it back, and it's now Drew versus Roman last minute. So I do think it's possible. I do think, as much as I would love to see Roman versus Randy, they've only had one big pay-per-view match back at SummerSlam in 2014. But I think that this has a better draw. Again, do you think that they're shooting their shot too early? This could be a WrestleMania main event, sure. But I don't think them having this match at Survivor Series prevents it from still being a WrestleMania main event, say either next year or the following year. Especially, it obviously is non-title. So if they get to a point where they have this match again, but it is for either one of the titles, you know, down the road, there's still more money on the table, I think, for it. But as far as like a one and done right now, yeah, I think that this would be a great option and something I'd definitely be looking forward to.
I'm going to interrupt you here for a second because when you said, yeah, we've seen Roman versus McIntyre at WrestleMania before, I totally forgot that WrestleMania 35, they fought each other. And, dude, that just goes to show you how different a storyline can determine a one-on-one match. Because, truth be told, 2 years ago, and you were with me at WrestleMania, I know we were sitting in different sections there, but I think I remember talking about this. That was one of the most non-anticipated matches of the card. I don't think anyone here. It was Roman's comeback match, and people were happy.
That's what, right.
It was a happy, go lucky feel match where Roman came back from leukemia. Thankfully, he had beaten leukemia, but it was kind of a last minute addition, and the roles were reversed. McIntyre was the heel, and Roman was the face, and no one cared. But in one instance, and maybe I'm just being a mark here, but I'm sure you'll agree with me because we kind of agree a lot about WWE. But just by watching SmackDown, I'm like, holy shit, I want to see this match at WrestleMania, right?
Oh, big time. It's such even though at that time Drew was kind of hot, medium hot as a heel, he was like the Scottish psychopath. He was doing, he was like crazy then. Roman was, the hot babyface coming back, and but it was what it was. Like you said, it was a tool to give Roman a big win on the grand stage. Nobody expected him to be there. But now this is a whole different beast. And this is like, this is a WrestleMania main event, and it's something I really want to see. Yeah, it's crazy how much can change. Not even 2 years, So we'll see what happens if Drew wins on Monday. We'll see it next Sunday.
Now, you brought up the point before, and I was going to ask you about this. This obviously isn't the first time that this has happened with Survivor Series, right? Where they've done a last-minute title change, kind of heading into the pay-per-view to get more of a showdown feel. I mean, do you think that kind of diminishes the title a little bit in the sense that this would be the third time in the last 4 years that they did a last minute title change a week before the pay-per-view, because it's always been the week before the pay-per-view where they do.
Yeah, it's always been a last minute thing. And I remember going into those title matches thinking like, oh, well, he's not going to win. He's got the big match coming up at Survivor Series. But he did. So you can go into this Monday thinking, oh, Drew's not going to win. He's got Randy's facing Roman. They're not going to have Drew, but he can. Diminishing the title, I mean, I don't think so, because they've been pretty good with keeping like pretty long title reigns. I was surprised that Drew lost at Hell in a Cell. I did see him keeping it until or through WrestleMania. I really did. So I was kind of surprised Randy won. And then I thought, okay, Randy won. Drew will maybe win it back eventually, maybe say around the Royal Rumble time or something like that. So I wouldn't expect Drew to win it back right away, as soon as this Monday, possibly. But it could happen. I don't think it diminishes it, because the way that the storyline is being built, you know, and then the match Survivor Series isn't for the title. So I don't think it does, but I mean, I could see an argument where people would say that it diminishes the title.
Well, I think we could both agree that Orton is eventually going to have another match with Edge, right? When Edge comes back.
Right.
And that match, in my opinion, doesn't need a championship tied to it.
No, it doesn't. And there was a rumor that once Orton won, that match, say they have it at WrestleMania, would be for the title. But it doesn't need to be for the title. Would I love to see Edge win the title eventually? Yeah, sure, of course. But it doesn't need to be his first match back from the tricep injury. You know, he could win it after, you know, the next pay-per-view or whatever. But so yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, hell, Drew could win it back and then Orton could win it back from him. We don't know. 99 book, and they would have changed the title every pay-per-view. So I mean,
that's true.
Swerve, bro, as Vince Russo would say.
I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, nevertheless, what happens here. If I was a fantasy booker, I would probably go with Orton retaining the title on Monday, going with Roman versus Orton at Survivor Series. But now you've kind of put intrigue for maybe the Royal Rumble, or I don't know, maybe because as long as The Rock is ready to go for WrestleMania, we're getting Roman versus Rock. I mean, you know, fingers crossed it's the match I think the entire wrestling world wants to see. So I highly doubt they're going to fight at WrestleMania, unless obviously The Rock can't do it, which would be a damn shame. But you could put that match, it's a money match draw at either like the Royal Rumble, or I don't know, maybe a big pay-per-view in between, or I don't know, one-time brand versus brand. You know, they're breaking their rules for the brand all the time, obviously, these days. So it really doesn't matter. But
no.
I'd be down to see Roman versus Drew. But if I'm playing fantasy booker here, I'm thinking Orton's going to retain on Monday, and we're going to get the eventual match between Roman versus Randy Orton. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they could definitely save it for down the road. And honestly, before last night, I wasn't expecting to see Drew versus Roman happening at Survivor Series. Before last night, I didn't expect Drew to be possibly winning the title on Monday. Now I do see it as more of an option based on what they built. But could have it been a swerve to get people thinking, oh, maybe Drew will win on Monday and it'll be Drew versus Roman, but it's not going to be. But maybe they did that to not put doubt in people. So I mean, it really can go either way. I think last night definitely put a little more, of a possibility of it being Drew versus Roman, but that is certainly something that they can save for another big show. But until they're on the same brand, I don't see it being for one of the titles.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Monday is going to have play a big part, have a lot of implications for Survivor Series. So I'm excited to see the match between Orton versus.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I'm more excited for this title match now than I was before last night.
Yeah. And we were talking about this off air, I think you and I kind of posed the question. For those of you that don't know, we have a group chat where I asked the question, but in my opinion, Friday Night SmackDown is the best show in pro wrestling right now. It's not even close. And again, I'm probably a little biased because I'm a huge WWE fan, but I do like AEW and I do enjoy NXT, of course, and Monday Night Raw is good, but I think SmackDown is the show to be. So Raw with a 3-hour format. Sometimes we both say it drags, but now you're putting a little bit more emphasis. You're hyping a match. You're doing cross-brand pollination here, where you're saying, okay, Monday's a must-see because we want to see McIntyre to see if he beats Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, and will he have that match at Survivor Series against Roman Reigns in the title versus title. So it'll certainly be interesting to see. The last topic I want to move on to, Fred, I want to talk about is last night on SmackDown, we also saw apparently the final chapter between Seth and Rey Mysterio.
Thank God.
They had a pretty good no-holds-barred match. So you kind of just answered my question here, but I'm going to pose it to you anyway. Are you glad this feud is over?
I am. Not that it wasn't a good feud, not that I didn't enjoy them working together, but I just feel like it is. There's certain feuds that be like, oh man, this could keep going. Like, don't end it. I've been done with this feud since Seth faced Dominic at SummerSlam. I feel like the swerve with Buddy Murphy was cool, but I feel like it was so late. Like that, like I don't know. I just feel like it was something they did 2 months ago. You know,
I'm asking myself while I'm watching it. I'm like, why would they have Murphy turn on Seth to rejoin Seth for a week to turn on him again?
Yeah, it was just like I feel like they didn't know what to do with either guy, and there is a rumor that Seth's going to take time off because Becky is due in December. So maybe they didn't want to get him involved in a new program before he leaves. So they just been trying to stretch it out, and then he's on the Survivor Series team Sunday, and then maybe that'll
be off for a month or so until their baby is born. I was thinking about it too, and I started asking myself when Seth comes back, which if he does take a month off, I would love to see him come back at maybe the Royal Rumble because we always want people to come back to the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Should he come back born again as a face? I mean, do you think his heel run should continue, or is a month off? It's probably not enough for the fans to say, you know what, I want the guy, the architect back, right? I want Monday Night Rollins or Friday Night Rollins in this case back.
It's funny. I think the Messiah gimmick I like, but at the same token, I think that this feud being drug on so long has hindered it because I've almost got to the point where I'm sick of Seth Rollins and the Messiah gimmick because of this feud.
Yeah.
So as hot as it was, like around say WrestleMania season, he was really good as and even in the beginning of the Rey Mysterio stuff, the stuff with the eye and all that. But I think, it would be awesome again if there's a crowd and whatever. But the countdown, and he hasn't been on TV for a month or so, and you hear "Burn it down." I think it would rejuvenate him. I think we've gotten so past. People got sick of Seth. The Fiend match last year killed his babyface run. But I think we've gotten away from that enough. The heel turn, undid all that negative aspect of him. But now it's starting to go the other way around. We're now the heel run is starting to be at its wit's end. And I think it could be time for a babyface run. I do think he's better as a heel than a face. I do. But I think it's also time for him to be a face again, even if it is for a little bit. I would love to see a program with him and Roman. They feuded before, but it was the other way around. Roman was the good guy, Seth was the bad guy, and their feud had gotten cut short. They only had a couple of matches. They had a match when Seth first came back from his MCL injury back in 2016. They had a match at Money in the Bank, and then that was it. So I could see a Seth versus Roman feud with Seth as a good guy. Roman needs opponents.
I just thought of a question I want to ask you, and this is going to be one that's going to make you think a little bit. Now, there's no doubt in both of our minds that Roman's a better heel than Seth, right? We both agree on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Roman as heel, it might be the best thing they've done.
So let me ask you, is Roman a better heel than Seth because of the creative behind it, or is it because he's just better at it as a person? He sinks his teeth more than Seth does into it. That's a question that's going to make you think for a minute, right?
Yeah, that's a hard, I don't have a quick answer for that one.
I got to say, I'll go first while you're thinking. To me, it's the creative. I think part of it is that Roman has been sinking his teeth into something like this for a while and been wanting to go heel. And obviously, when you do 7, 8 straight years as a face, right? It's going to be time for you to say, you know what, let me go as a heel. But part of it is, I mean, they're just giving him so much better material, I feel like, than they're giving Seth. I mean, the fact where Roman can kind of blur the lines between reality versus storyline with his cousin and being the head of the tribe of the Uso family and the Reigns family, right? The Anoya family, tapping into the fact that, he's grown up with the Usos, right? Even though they're cousins, they're more like brothers. But at the end of the day, he's always been superior to them in every way possible. So to me, I think the creative has just been fantastic. Not that Seth's creative has been terrible, but it hasn't even been close. But as far as the actor part of it goes, I think Seth could fill in that role too as Roman Reigns, as a top heel. I just feel like they haven't given him as much material as they've given Roman. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the creative has definitely been better for Roman. I mean, just the storyline that he's been given and, just the way it's been executed has been so well done. Completely different than anything Seth did. I mean, he hasn't been so much of the chicken shit heel in this Messiah run, but like his original heel run, like in, the Authority and all that, where he was the chicken shit heel. Like he was good as that, but this, I mean, what they're doing with Roman is so different. And I think the other thing that makes Roman's heel turn so good and so big is the fact that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like when Hogan turned heel in '96 in the NWO. Like Seth, he started out as a heel after the Shield. I mean, the Shield had a little babyface run, but they were heels majority of their run, and then he became a heel, and then he was a babyface for a little bit, the last like year or two before he turned heel last time. But so I think that's a big aspect of it too, is the fact that Roman became a heel, but he's been given great creative. They could have turned Roman heel, and then it was like he's in like shitty storyline, like didn't really go well. But they've been giving him great stuff. So I think it's a little bit of both.
I think it's safe to say, I mean, I'm sure and I know for sure all good things have to come to an end, but the way they're going with Roman, I mean, he's just getting better and better each week. The way he berated his cousin last night on television, right?
Yeah.
What is this we? It's me. I'm the head of the table here. I mean, I'm like, man, I was texting my brother. I was like, week after week, he just gets better as a heel.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he could be a heel probably for the rest of his career if he continues to go down this path.
Oh, yes. I think so. He's hitting the peak of his career right now. Like he's been a big, no pun intended, the big dog for the last 7 years or so.
Yeah.
But it's almost like everything he's done for this was like nothing compared to like what he's doing now. Like this is giving him so much more legs on his career, to the point that he can go down as a top heel of, it's just incredible. I could look at it like I referenced Hogan before, right? There's two Hogans, there's red and yellow Hogan,
right?
And NWO black and white Hogan, right? They're almost like two different entities. They've had two different careers. And I think we can maybe see that with Roman more so than just like, oh, this guy turned heel, he turned face, he turned heel, he turned face. They did both. Like we could see the big dog Roman Reigns babyface, in the vest. And now this is a different Roman Reigns heel, tribal chief, like totally different career, This run could last 5 years or so. So, yeah, I definitely, as long as he has opponents, that's an important factor.
Right.
This is why I mentioned before about, Seth turning face again, because Roman needs high quality opponents to beat, So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Roman's heel run is only just beginning.
So as we close out here, I want to ask you really quick before we kind of jump off here with Murphy kind of going face and finally getting the blessing from the Mysterio family. Do you think they're going to end up doing anything with this? I mean, is he going to actually come out ahead of this storyline now with Aaliyah by his side?
God, I hope so, because I'm a huge Murphy fan. I've been a fan of his since he was on 205 Live. I was so happy for him then that he was finally, because he hadn't really done anything after him and Blake had broke up a few years ago, and then he didn't do anything. And when he won the title in Australia, and then he was on, he did the thing last year against Roman when I don't know if it was a storyline with with Daniel Bryan or with some where they thought that he was the one that like
Oh yeah.
take right, and they did that whole little thing, and that was a huge spot. They had a great match on SmackDown
Right.
versus Murphy, and then he kind of didn't do anything, and then we saw him join the as a disciple, and that was good for a while. And so you know what, I hope he gets a really nice babyface run. I'd like to see him. I don't think they should give him too much in once because that could backfire. But let him have a babyface run. Let him go for the Intercontinental title. Let him have big matches on SmackDown and look like a viable contender and a big time superstar. He's got the look. He's talented on the mic. He's talented in the ring. And if he has like a rub from the Mysterios, I don't think that's a bad thing either. And then eventually we could see Bad Blood happening. I could see an Aaliyah Buddy Murphy, almost similar to like the Vince Stephanie thing, where Aaliyah turns, and leaves her father and brother and family and goes with Murphy kind of thing. I could see some cool stuff they could do with that down the road, where everything's all happy, roses and stuff with Buddy and the Mysterios, and then shit happens. Ooh. Yeah. So I could see big things happening from Murphy. At least I hope so.
I do too. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So that's it for today, guys. Next week we are going to come back. We're going to have our pal Nick back here for the 3-man booth while we do our Survivor Series prediction. So, Fred, I know you're very excited for Survivor Series. I am too, because obviously, in addition to it being a pretty well-stacked pay-per-view, we do have the final farewell of The Undertaker. And Fred, I don't know if the viewers know this by now, but it is Fred's favorite wrestler of all time, and definitely a top 5 of mine as well, too. So it'll certainly be a hell of a pay-per-view. I'm curious to see what type of tribute they do for it. But beforehand, you guys can certainly catch the show next week while we do our predictions to go over all the matches that are certainly taking place at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. As always, you can find our show on the True Exact Radio platform. You can find us on Instagram at True Exact Radio. You can watch the show on the True Exact Radio on the YouTube channel. Find us on the podcast app and also at iTunes and Spotify. So I'm excited to talk about Survivor Series next week, Fred. Definitely get your predictions ready, my friend, because we're going to kind of do a brand supremacy here, see who has the most picks right out of all 3 of us.
Awesome. I can't wait to talk about Survivor Series.
All right, my friend. Well, thanks for jumping on today, and we'll see everyone next week. Thanks so much, Ben.